"I'll take you to my room," the mysterious stranger whispered to Sophia as she cried at her own engagement party, desperate to escape her controlling fiancé. When she shocked him by responding, "Take me with you now," neither of them knew this reckless decision would unveil his darkest secret and force them to fight deadly enemies, brutal betrayals, and impossible choices between love and survival. Smash that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me if you'd run away with a dangerous stranger to escape a toxic relationship. And subscribe because this story gets absolutely wild. The crystal chandelier cast prismatic light across the ballroom, but Sophia Bennett barely noticed the opulence surrounding her. She stood at the edge of the Whitmore Foundation gala, her engagement ring, a gaudy 5-carat diamond that Marcus had chosen without asking her preference, heavy on her finger like a shackle. 20 feet away, her fiancé held court with Manhattan's elite, his hand possessively gripping a whiskey tumbler as he laughed at his own joke. Marcus Whitmore, 44 years old, successful real estate mogul, and the man her father had promised her to 6 months ago when his company faced bankruptcy. The arrangement was simple: Sophia's hand in marriage for the capital injection that would save Bennett Industries. She'd agreed because she was a dutiful daughter, because she thought she could learn to love him, because she was 24 and naive enough to believe marriage was about partnership. She'd been wrong about all of it. "Darling, stop sulking in the corner." Marcus appeared at her elbow, his cologne expensive but overpowering. His fingers closed around her wrist, not quite hard enough to bruise, but with enough pressure to make his point. "You're supposed to be charming my investors, not hiding like a child." "I'm not sulking," Sophia said quietly, forcing a smile for the benefit of watching eyes. "I just needed a moment." "You'll have plenty of moments after we're married. Right now, I need you to be present." His grip tightened fractionally. "Senator Morrison is considering a significant investment. Go talk to his wife about wedding plans. Women love that sort of thing." It wasn't a request. Sophia had learned in 6 months that nothing Marcus said was ever really a request. She nodded, waiting for him to release her wrist. When he finally did, she could see the white marks his fingers had left on her skin. "And Sophia?" Marcus leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "Smile more. You look ungrateful, and that reflects poorly on both of us." He walked away, leaving her trembling with a mixture of anger and helplessness. This was her future. Decades of being paraded like a trophy, controlled like a possession, slowly suffocating under the weight of Marcus's expectations. The wedding was in 3 weeks. 3 weeks until the cage locked permanently. Sophia couldn't breathe. The ballroom felt too small, too crowded, the air too thick with perfume and false laughter. She needed to escape, even if just for a moment. Slipping through the French doors, she found herself in the estate's garden, where fairy lights twinkled in the trees and the sounds of the party faded to a distant murmur. The cool October air hit her face, and finally, she could breathe. Sophia walked deeper into the garden, following a stone path until she reached a fountain surrounded by rose bushes. Only then did she let the tears fall, pressing her hands against her face as silent sobs shook her shoulders. "Rough night?" Sophia spun around, hastily wiping her eyes. A man stood near the fountain, partially shadowed by an oak tree. As he stepped into the light, her breath caught. He was devastating, tall and powerfully built, wearing a perfectly tailored black suit that emphasized broad shoulders and a trim waist. But it was his face that held her attention. Sharp jawline covered with neat stubble, black hair swept back from a widow's peak, and eyes the color of steel that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed facades. "I'm sorry," Sophia managed, trying to compose herself. "I didn't know anyone else was out here. Don't apologize for having emotions." His voice was deep, with an edge that suggested danger lurking beneath cultured tones. "Though if you're trying to hide them, you might want to fix your mascara. You've got a bit of a raccoon situation happening." Despite everything, Sophia laughed. a real laugh that bubbled up unexpectedly. She used her fingers to wipe under her eyes, knowing she must look like a disaster. That bad? I've seen worse. He moved closer, pulling a pristine handkerchief from his pocket and offering it to her. Roman Steele. And you're Sophia Bennett, if I'm not mistaken. The soon-to-be Mrs. Whitmore. The way he said her future name made it sound like a prison sentence. Sophia accepted the handkerchief, dabbing at her ruined makeup. You know Marcus? I know of him. Roman's expression was unreadable. Manhattan's not that big when you move in certain circles. He's making quite the name for himself in commercial real estate. Yes, he's very successful. The words came out automatically, the same script she'd been reciting for months whenever anyone mentioned her fiancé. And you're very miserable. The blunt observation caught her off guard. Sophia looked up sharply, meeting those penetrating gray eyes. Most people pretended not to notice her unhappiness, too polite or too uncomfortable to acknowledge the obvious. But Roman stood there waiting for her response, his expression neither judgmental nor pitying, just honest. I don't know what you mean, she tried, but the lie felt heavy on her tongue. You're crying in a garden at your own engagement party. Your wrist has finger marks that weren't there when you entered the ballroom 20 minutes ago. And when I mentioned your future married name, you flinched. Roman tilted his head, studying her. So yes, I'd say you're miserable. The question is what you're going to do about it. Sophia's defenses crumbled. Maybe it was the darkness, the anonymity of speaking to a stranger who had no stake in her life. Maybe it was the gentle challenge in his voice, the first person in months who'd asked what she wanted instead of telling her what she should do. Or maybe she was just desperate for someone, anyone, to see her as more than Marcus Whitmore's pretty acquisition. What can I do? The question came out broken. My father's business depends on this marriage. If I walk away, he loses everything. 50 employees lose their jobs. My family loses their home, their reputation, everything they've built over 3 generations. So you're sacrificing yourself to save them. That's what family does, isn't it? We make sacrifices. Roman was quiet for a long moment, his gaze never leaving her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, but no less intense. There's a difference between sacrifice and self-destruction. What you're describing sounds more like the latter. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. He moved closer, and Sophia became acutely aware of his presence, the controlled power in his posture, the faint scent of his cologne mixing with autumn leaves, the way he looked at her like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve. I understand that Marcus Whitmore is a controlling bastard who sees you as property. I understand that you're terrified of disappointing your father. And I understand that right now, you're looking for any escape route, even if it's just fantasy. Sophia's heart pounded against her ribs. How do you know all that? Because I'm very good at reading people. It's a necessary skill in my line of work. Roman's lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. And because I recognize that look in your eyes, the desperate calculation of someone trapped in a corner, searching for exits that don't exist. There are no exits. The admission hurt. In 3 weeks, I walk down that aisle and become Mrs. Marcus Whitmore. That's my fate. Fate is just another word for giving up. Roman stepped even closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jaw, the way his pupils dilated as he studied her. What if I told you there's always another option? Always another door, even when you can't see it? I'd say you don't know Marcus. He doesn't lose, ever. Neither do I. The words were quiet but absolute. Roman reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was intimate, proprietary, and sent electricity skating down her spine. You want to know what I think, Sophia? She could barely breathe. What? I think you're stronger than you believe. I think you're tired of being controlled. And I think... His thumb traced along her jaw. tilting her face up to meet his eyes. "If you wanted to disappear tonight, to walk away from all of this, you could. The only question is whether you're brave enough to choose yourself over everyone else's expectations." It was insane. She'd known this man for all of 10 minutes. But standing in that garden with Roman's hand on her face and his words offering impossible promises, Sophia felt something shift inside her, a crack in the wall of resignation she'd built around her heart. And if I did want to disappear? The question came out barely above a whisper. Where would I even go? Roman's smile was dangerous and beautiful. I could think of a few places, starting with my penthouse in Tribeca. He paused, his gray eyes darkening with something that made her pulse race. "I'll take you to my room, Sophia. Right now, if you want. We'll leave through the garden gate, and by the time Marcus realizes you're gone, you'll be somewhere he can't touch you." It should have sounded predatory, should have sent every alarm bell ringing in her head. But instead, it sounded like salvation wrapped in sin, an escape route she'd been praying for without knowing it existed. Sophia knew she should refuse, should step back, should return to the ballroom and her predetermined future. Instead, she heard herself say the words that would change everything. "Take me with you now." Roman's expression shifted, surprise, heat, and something almost like reverence crossing his features. "You're sure? Once we leave, there's no going back. Marcus will come looking for you. Your father will be furious. Your entire life will explode." It's already exploded. Sophia took his hand, her decision made. "I'm just choosing which direction to jump. And right now, anywhere is better than here." For a moment, Roman just looked at their joined hands, his thumbs stroking across her knuckles. Then he pulled out his phone, typed a quick message, and pocketed it again. "My car will be at the north gate in 3 minutes. We go now, we go fast, and you don't look back. Understood?" Understood. They moved through the garden like shadows, Roman's hand warm and solid around hers. Sophia's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. This was insane, reckless, completely unlike anything she'd ever done in her carefully controlled life. But God, it felt like breathing after being underwater for months. The north gate appeared ahead, and beyond it, a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. A driver stood beside it, a huge man who nodded once at Roman and opened the rear door without a word. "Last chance to change your mind," Roman said, his hand still holding hers. Sophia looked back at the mansion, at the golden light spilling from the ballroom windows where Marcus was probably already searching for her. She thought about her father, about the wedding dress hanging in her closet, about the life sentence she'd been about to accept. Then she looked at Roman, this dangerous stranger who'd offered her freedom without asking for anything in return, and stepped into the car. Roman slid in beside her, and the door closed with a quiet thunk of expensive engineering. As the Mercedes pulled away from the estate, Sophia felt something inside her chest loosen, the first deep breath she'd taken in 6 months. "Where are we going?" she asked, watching the mansion disappear in the rear window. "Somewhere safe." Roman's hand found hers again in the darkness. "And then we figure out what comes next. Together." The word "together" shouldn't have made her heart skip. She didn't know this man, didn't know what she was walking into. But as Manhattan's lights blurred past the windows and Roman's thumb traced gentle circles on her palm, Sophia realized she'd just made the first real choice of her adult life. And whatever came next, it had to be better than the cage she'd escaped. The penthouse was everything Sophia expected, and nothing like she'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River, the city lights creating a glittering tapestry against the night sky. But the space itself was surprisingly understated. Dark leather furniture, modern art that looked original, shelves filled with books that had actually been read. This was a home, not a showpiece. "Drink?" Roman moved to a bar that took up one wall, his movements fluid and controlled. "Please." Sophia stood awkwardly near the entrance, suddenly aware of what she'd done. She'd just left her engagement party with a complete stranger. She had no phone. It was in her clutch back at the estate. No wallet, no keys, nothing but the designer dress on her back and the escape route she'd desperately grabbed. Roman returned with 2 glasses of amber liquid. Scotch. 18-year-old Macallan. You look like you could use something strong. Sophia accepted the glass and took a large swallow, welcoming the burn. The alcohol hit her system, warming her from the inside out. I can't believe I just did that. Having regrets already? No. Yes. I don't know. She laughed shakily, moving to the windows. I just walked out on my engagement party, my fiancé, my entire life. My father is probably having a heart attack right now. Marcus is definitely planning my murder. And I'm here in a stranger's penthouse drinking expensive scotch like this is somehow normal. Nothing about this situation is normal, Roman agreed, coming to stand beside her. But that doesn't mean it was wrong. Sophia turned to look at him, really look at him for the first time in proper light. Roman steel was even more devastating than the garden shadows had suggested. Angular features that could have been carved from marble, those intense gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything. A body that moved with the kind of control that spoke of either extensive training or violence, or both. Who are you really? The question came out before she could stop it. And don't say you're just a businessman. Nobody moves the way you move or reads people the way you do unless there's something more. A slow smile crossed Roman's face, equal parts admiration and caution. Observant, I like that. He took a sip of his scotch, considering. I'm whatever I need to be in any given situation. Tonight, I'm the man who gave you an escape route. Tomorrow? He shrugged. We'll see what tomorrow requires. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. Roman set down his glass and turned to face her fully. Here's what I can tell you. I have resources. Enough to keep you safe from Marcus and anyone he might send looking for you. I have connections. Enough to make sure you're not found unless you want to be. And I have... He paused, something flickering in his eyes. Let's call it experience dealing with men like your ex-fiancé. Men who think they own people. Why are you helping me? Sophia searched his face, trying to understand. You don't know me. You get nothing out of this except potential trouble with a very powerful, very vindictive man. Don't I? Roman's hand came up, fingers ghosting along her cheekbone with such gentleness it made her breath catch. Maybe I get the satisfaction of ruining Marcus Whitmore's night. Maybe I get the pleasure of your company. Or maybe... His thumb traced her lower lip, sending heat straight through her core. I'm exactly as dangerous as you suspect, and I have my own reasons for wanting you here. Sophia should have been terrified. Should have demanded answers, insisted on understanding his motivations. But standing this close to Roman, feeling the heat radiating from his body, watching the way his pupils dilated as he looked at her, all she felt was a desperate, reckless want. Are you dangerous? She whispered. Very. No hesitation, no apology. I'm probably the last man you should trust. But I'm also the one who's going to make sure Marcus never touches you again. So the question becomes, which matters more to you right now? Safety in ignorance or dangerous honesty? Dangerous honesty, Sophia said, making a choice for the second time that night. I'm done with pretty lies and false security. Something blazed in Roman's eyes, triumph, desire, and a hunger that should have frightened her. Instead, it called to something equally reckless inside her own chest. He set down his scotch glass with deliberate care, then took hers and placed it beside his own. Then let me be honest, Roman said, his hands finding her waist and pulling her flush against his body. I saw you in that ballroom 2 hours ago, watching Marcus with dead eyes and a broken spirit. I saw the way he touched you, proprietary and careless, like you were an object he owned. And I decided then that I was going to take you from him. You decided... Sophia's breath caught as his hands slid up her sides, thumbs brushing the curve of her breasts through her dress. Just like that? Just like that. Roman's lips hovered near hers, not quite touching. I don't believe in fate, Sophia. I believe in taking what I want and accepting the consequences. And I want you. Have from the moment I saw you. The question is, what do you want? What did she want? The answer was simultaneously simple and terrifying. She wanted to feel alive instead of suffocated. Wanted to be seen as a person instead of a transaction. Wanted this man who looked at her like she was something precious and powerful all at once, whose touch made her body wake up after months of feeling numb. I want... Sophia rose on her toes, closing the distance between them. To stop thinking, to stop being afraid, to feel something real instead of this constant pretense. Then stop thinking. Roman's mouth claimed hers in a kiss that was nothing like the chaste pecks Marcus had given her. This was claiming, demanding, a complete possession that short-circuited every coherent thought. His tongue swept past her lips, tasting like scotch and sin, and Sophia melted into him with a moan she didn't recognize as her own voice. Roman walked her backward, hands roaming her body with confident possession, until her back hit the window. The cold glass contrasted sharply with the heat of his body pressed against her front. His lips moved from her mouth to her jaw, trailing fire down her throat. Tell me to stop, Roman growled against her skin, his teeth scraping her pulse point. Tell me this is too fast, too crazy. Tell me you need time. Don't stop. Sophia's hands fisted in his hair, holding him to her. Don't you dare stop. His hands found the zipper of her dress, sliding it down with agonizing slowness. This dress cost a fortune, didn't it? Marcus's money? Yes. Good. Roman's smile was wicked as he pushed the expensive fabric off her shoulders, letting it pool at her feet. I'm going to enjoy destroying it. Sophia stood before him in nothing but lace underwear and heels, the city lights making patterns on her skin. She should have felt vulnerable, exposed. Instead, she felt powerful, especially when Roman's eyes went dark with naked want. Perfect, he said roughly, his hands mapping her waist, her hips, the curve of her breasts. Absolutely perfect. Then he was lifting her, and Sophia wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her toward what she assumed was his bedroom. They didn't make it that far. Roman pressed her against the hallway wall, his mouth finding hers again as his hands explored every inch of newly exposed skin. Bedroom, Sophia gasped between kisses. We should... Too far. Roman's teeth caught her lower lip. Need you now. It was reckless and desperate and absolutely perfect. They came together with the intensity of people who'd been starving without knowing it, finding sustenance in touch and heat and the simple act of choosing themselves over expectation. Sophia had never felt so present in her own body, so completely overwhelmed by sensation. Afterward, Roman carried her to his bedroom, an enormous space dominated by a bed that could sleep four, and laid her down with surprising gentleness. He disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a warm cloth, cleaning her with the same care he'd shown destroying her earlier. Stay, he said simply, climbing into bed beside her and pulling her against his chest. Stay tonight. Tomorrow we'll deal with Marcus and your father and all the consequences, but tonight, just stay. Sophia knew she should ask questions, should demand to know more about who Roman really was, what his agenda might be, why he'd been so ready to interfere in her life. But wrapped in his arms, feeling safer than she had in months despite the uncertainty, she found she didn't care about the answers. Okay, she whispered, her eyes already closing. I'll stay. Roman's arms tightened around her, and as she drifted toward sleep, she heard him murmur against her hair. Mine now. He doesn't get you back. The possessiveness should have alarmed her. Instead, it felt like a promise, and for the first time in 6 months, Sophia let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd found a way out of her cage after all. Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of someone moving in the adjacent room. For a disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then memory crashed back. The garden, Roman's offer, leaving her entire life behind. She sat up quickly, clutching the sheet to her chest, and looked around Roman's bedroom. The space was masculine and sophisticated, all dark wood and clean lines. Through the open door, she could see into a living area where Roman stood with his back to her, speaking quietly into his phone. He wore black slacks and nothing else, the morning light highlighting the musculature of his back and shoulders, along with an array of scars that told stories of violence she couldn't begin to imagine. "I don't care what Whitmore is offering," Roman said into the phone, his voice hard. "The answer is no. And tell him if he keeps pushing, he's going to find out exactly how unpleasant I can make his life." A pause. "Good. Keep me updated on any movement." He ended the call and turned, catching her watching him. His expression softened slightly. "Good morning. How do you feel?" "Like I'm in someone else's life." Sophia pulled the sheet tighter around herself. "Was that about Marcus? Is he looking for me?" "Marcus, your father, and apparently half of Manhattan's social circle." Roman moved to the bed, sitting on the edge and handing her a phone. Not hers, but a sleek new smartphone. "Your phone has been blowing up since last night. 37 calls from Marcus, 15 from your father, and a disturbing number from a contact labeled Mother. I took the liberty of getting you a new one. Untraceable." Sophia stared at the phone, reality settling like a weight on her chest. "They're going to be furious. My father's business deal with Marcus is not your responsibility." Roman's hand found her jaw, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. "Listen to me carefully, Sophia. Whatever consequences come from last night, they're not your burden to carry alone. You didn't create this situation. Your father did when he sold you to save his company. He didn't sell me, he just made you responsible for his failures, expected you to sacrifice your happiness for his business decisions, arranged your marriage to a man who treats you like property." Roman's voice was gentle but implacable. "That's selling you. Maybe not for cash, but for capital and business connections, which amounts to the same thing." The words hurt because they were true. Sophia had spent 6 months convincing herself that her father's arrangement was normal, even noble, that good daughters sacrificed for their families. But hearing Roman say it out loud made the reality impossible to deny. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked quietly. "I can't just hide here forever." "Why not?" Roman's smile was dangerous and beautiful. "I have resources you can't imagine. We could disappear tomorrow. New identities, new city, new life. Marcus would never find you." "That's insane." "Is it? Or is it just unfamiliar?" He stroked his thumb across her cheekbone. "You've spent your whole life doing what other people expected. Maybe it's time to do something crazy just because you want to." Sophia searched his face, trying to understand this man who'd upended her world in less than 12 hours. "Who are you really, Roman? And don't give me that evasive non-answer again. If I'm going to trust you with my life, I need the truth." Roman was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. Finally, he stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city below. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested the truth was heavier than she'd imagined. "I told you I have experience dealing with men like Marcus. That's because I am a man like Marcus, or at least I was." He turned to face her. "I control things, Sophia. Businesses, territories, people. I built an empire by being smarter, more ruthless, and more willing to do whatever was necessary than my competitors. I've broken men who crossed me and destroyed families who threatened what's mine." Sophia's heart pounded. What kind of businesses? The kind that exist in shadows. The kind that don't appear on any legal documents. Our Roman's expression was carefully neutral. "I'm not a good man. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. But I'm also someone who keeps his word, who protects what's his, and who sees through bullshit arrangements like the one your father tried to force you into." You're a criminal. The words came out flat, not quite a question. I prefer entrepreneur with flexible ethics, but yes, I operate outside the law when the law is inconvenient. Roman moved back to the bed, kneeling so they were eye level. I should have told you before last night, before we... He gestured vaguely at the bed. But I was afraid you'd run, and I wasn't ready to let you go. Sophia should have been terrified, should have demanded he take her home immediately, consequences be damned. But she thought about the scars on his back, the controlled violence in the way he moved, the absolute certainty with which he'd promised to keep her safe from Marcus. This wasn't a good man, but maybe good men didn't know how to fight the monsters. What do you want from me? She asked carefully. There has to be something. Nobody helps someone for nothing. You're right, I do want something. Roman's hand found hers, his fingers threading through hers with surprising gentleness. I want you to stay. I want to see what this becomes when you're not running from Marcus and I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. I want... He paused, something vulnerable flickering across his features. I want to be the man who sees you happy instead of desperate. That's not an answer either. It's the only honest answer I have. Roman brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. I can't explain why you matter. You just do. From the moment I saw you in that garden, something shifted, and I'm selfish enough to want to keep you, even though I know I shouldn't. Sophia's phone, her old phone, the one Roman had left on the nightstand, began vibrating with another incoming call. Marcus's name flashed across the screen, and even from a distance, she could feel the weight of his anger pressing down on her. He's not going to stop looking for me, she said quietly. I know. Roman's voice hardened. Which is why we need to make it clear that you're under my protection now. Marcus understands power and consequences. Once he knows who has you, he'll back off. Who has me? Sophia raised an eyebrow. That sounds uncomfortably like what I was trying to escape. Poor word choice. Roman smiled slightly. Let me rephrase. Once he knows you've chosen someone who can actually protect you, someone he can't intimidate or manipulate, he'll realize the engagement is over. And if he doesn't, then I'll make him understand. The threat in Roman's voice was absolute. I've ended more powerful men than Marcus Whitmore for lesser offenses than putting his hands on what's mine. There was that possessiveness again, that casual assumption of ownership that should have set off every alarm bell. But Sophia found herself strangely unbothered by it. Maybe because Roman's possession felt nothing like Marcus's. Where Marcus wanted to control and diminish, Roman seemed to want to protect and elevate. I don't want you to hurt him, Sophia said carefully. Despite everything, I don't want violence. Then we'll handle it another way. Roman stood, pulling her up with him. Get dressed. We're going to your father's office, and you're going to tell him the engagement is off. I'll be there to make sure he listens. Roman, you don't understand how stubborn my father can be, and you don't understand how persuasive I can be when necessary. His smile was sharp. Trust me, Sophia. Your father will see reason, one way or another. An hour later, Sophia sat in the back of Roman's Mercedes, watching the city blur past. He'd given her clothes, designer pieces that fit perfectly, suggesting he'd had someone acquire them this morning along with the phone. Victor, the massive driver, navigated Manhattan traffic with the kind of aggressive efficiency that suggested he'd done this many times before. Tell me about Victor, Sophia said, watching the man's impassive reflection in the rearview mirror. He's been with me for 7 years. Saved my life twice, nearly died for me once, and is probably the only person in this city I trust completely. Roman's hand found hers on the seat between them. He's also ex-military, speaks 6 languages, and could kill most people with his bare hands. So if things get ugly with your father, Victor will ensure they don't get too ugly. You're expecting things to get ugly? I'm expecting your father to be exactly what he's proven himself to be, a man who values his business over his daughter's happiness. Roman's jaw tightened. Men like that respond to power, not appeals to emotion. So we're going to show him power. They pulled up outside Bennett Industries, a modest building in Midtown. Sophia's stomach churned with anxiety as Victor opened her door. Her father was inside that building, probably frantic with worry or fury or both. And she was about to walk in with a man he'd never met and announce she was ending the arrangement that was supposed to save everything. "Ready?" Roman offered his hand. Sophia took it, feeling the solid warmth of his palm against hers. "No. But let's do it anyway." They walked into the building together, Victor following at a discreet distance. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw Sophia. Clearly she'd heard about last night's disappearance. "Miss Bennett, your father has been... Is he in his office?" Sophia kept her voice steady. "Yes, but he's in a meeting with Mr. Whitmore and..." Roman didn't wait for permission. He guided Sophia toward the executive offices, moving with the kind of certainty that made people step aside instinctively. They reached her father's door, and Roman opened it without knocking. Inside, her father sat behind his desk, his face haggard and aged by what looked like a sleepless night. Marcus stood by the window, immaculate as always, his expression thunderous when he saw Sophia. A third man, Marcus's lawyer probably, sat in one of the guest chairs. "Sophia!" Her father stood abruptly. "Thank God you're all right. We've been worried sick. Where have you been? Who is this man?" "This is Roman Steele," Sophia said, her voice steadier than she felt. "And I'm here to tell you that the engagement is off. I'm not marrying Marcus." The room erupted. Her father protested. Marcus's face went purple with rage, and the lawyer started making notes. But Roman simply stood beside Sophia, his presence an anchor in the chaos, and waited for them to quiet down. When they finally did, it was Marcus who spoke first, his voice dangerously controlled. "Sophia, darling, I understand you're confused. Last night was overwhelming, but running off with some stranger is not the answer. Come home with me and we'll forget this ever happened." "I'm not confused," Sophia said firmly. "I'm done. The engagement is over." "Like hell it is." Marcus took a step forward and Victor moved to intercept, his huge frame suddenly between Marcus and Sophia. Marcus stopped, glaring at the bodyguard. "You can't just walk away. We have a contract." "A contract her father signed, not her," Roman said quietly, speaking for the first time. "And contracts signed under duress tend not to hold up well in court." "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. "I'm the man she's choosing instead of you." Roman's smile was all teeth and threat. "And unlike you, I'm giving her a choice. She wants to leave. She can leave. She wants to stay. She can stay. But what she won't be doing is marrying a controlling bastard who treats her like property." "Mr. Steele," Sophia's father interjected desperately, "you don't understand the situation. The merger between our companies depends on this marriage. If Sophia backs out, Marcus withdraws his investment, and Bennett Industries goes bankrupt. 50 employees lose their jobs. My family loses everything." "Then you should have built a better business model," Roman said without sympathy. "But regardless, that's not Sophia's problem to solve. She's not a commodity you can trade for capital. She's my daughter, and she has responsibilities. She's an adult woman who deserves to make her own choices." Roman's voice hardened. "Now, here's what's going to happen. Sophia is walking out of this office with me. The engagement ends today. And if either of you try to force the issue, through social pressure, financial manipulation, or any other means, you'll discover exactly how unpleasant I can make your lives." "You're threatening me?" Marcus's laugh was incredulous. "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?" Roman's expression went cold and deadly. "Because if you did, you'd be backing away instead of posturing. I suggest you ask around about Roman Steele before you decide to push this. Ask what happens to men who cross me. Ask what happened to the last person who tried to take something of mine." Something in Roman's tone made even Marcus hesitate. The room fell silent, tension crackling like electricity. Sophia watched her father's face crumble, saw Marcus's calculation as he weighed the unknown threat against his pride. "This isn't over," Marcus finally said. "I have invested considerable time and money into this arrangement, and I will be compensated for my losses. Send me a bill," Roman said dismissively. "Now if we're done here," he turned to Sophia. "Ready to go?" Sophia looked at her father, seeing the disappointment and desperation in his eyes. Part of her wanted to apologize, to try to fix this. But a larger part, the part that had been suffocating for 6 months, recognized this as her only chance at freedom. "Goodbye, Dad," she said softly. "I'm sorry it had to be this way." Then she turned and walked out of the office, Roman's hand warm on the small of her back, Victor clearing a path ahead of them. Behind her, she heard her father calling her name, Marcus shouting threats, but she didn't look back. In the elevator, descending away from her old life, Sophia finally allowed herself to breathe. Roman pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her protectively. "You did the right thing," he murmured against her hair. "Did I? My father's company is going to fail. All those people will lose their jobs. None of which is your fault or your responsibility." Roman tilted her face up, his gray eyes fierce. "You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, Sophia. Sometimes the only choice is to save yourself and let the consequences fall where they may." As the elevator reached the ground floor and they stepped out into the Manhattan sunlight, Sophia realized she'd just burned every bridge in her old life. Her family, her social circle, her carefully constructed future, all of it gone. And somehow, with Roman's hand in hers, and the open possibility of what came next stretching before her, she felt lighter than she had in years. "What now?" she asked. Roman's smile was dangerous and full of promise. "Now we see what happens when you stop living someone else's life and start living your own, together." 2 weeks passed in a strange bubble of safety and discovery. Sophia moved into Roman's penthouse, her old life feeling like a distant nightmare. She learned Roman's routines, the way he made coffee at 5 a.m., how he read the news in 3 languages, the calls he took behind closed doors that always left him tense. He was careful around her, revealing pieces of his world in measured doses. But Marcus wasn't finished. The first threat came via courier, a legal letter demanding Sophia return the engagement ring and compensate Marcus for emotional distress and breach of contract. Roman had laughed darkly and thrown it in the fireplace. The second came through her mother, tearful phone calls begging Sophia to reconsider, to think of the family. Sophia had blocked the number, her heart breaking but her resolve firm. The third threat was different. Sophia was shopping with a bodyguard Roman insisted accompany her when a black SUV pulled alongside the boutique entrance. 3 men emerged, their suits expensive but their eyes cold. The lead one, a man with a scar bisecting his eyebrow, approached with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Whitmore would like a word." "I have nothing to say to Marcus," Sophia said, her bodyguard, a woman named Elena, stepping between them. "That's unfortunate, because Mr. Whitmore is prepared to make things very difficult for Mr. Steele if you don't cooperate. Business difficulties, legal complications, the kind of scrutiny that even powerful men can't ignore." The scarred man's smile widened. 5 minutes of your time and all that unpleasantness goes away." Sophia's phone was already in her hand. Roman's number dialed. He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" "Marcus sent people. They want me to meet with him or he'll—" She repeated the threat. Roman's voice went ice cold. "Put him on the phone." Sophia handed her phone to the scarred man, watching his expression shift from confidence to uncertainty as Roman spoke. After 30 seconds, he handed the phone back and gestured to his men. They returned to the SUV and drove away without another word. "What did you say to him?" Sophia asked when she had the phone back. I reminded him of the natural order of things. Roman's voice was still hard. Get back to the penthouse, now. Victor is on his way to pick you up. That evening, Roman told her the truth she'd been avoiding. Marcus has made an alliance with the Kozlov family, rivals who've been testing my boundaries for months. He's offering them information about my operations in exchange for help getting you back. What kind of information could Marcus possibly have? About me. About where you are. About vulnerabilities in my security. Roman's jaw clenched. He's smarter than I gave him credit for, and more dangerous. Then let me go. Sophia's voice shook, but she meant it. I'll disappear. Go somewhere Marcus can't find me. I won't be the reason you lose everything. No. Roman pulled her against him, his arms iron bands around her waist. You're not running, and I'm not losing anything. But we need to be smart about this. Marcus wants a confrontation, so we're going to give him one. On my terms. What does that mean? It means tomorrow night, you and I are attending the Grayson Foundation Charity Gala. Very public, very visible. Marcus will be there, along with half of Manhattan's power players. And we're going to make it very clear that you're under my protection and this game is over. Sophia searched his face, seeing the dangerous determination there. You're using me as bait. I'm using us both as bait. Roman's hand cupped her face. But I'll have 20 of my best people there. Nothing will happen to you. I promise. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, a glittering affair that made Sophia's engagement party look modest. Roman had dressed her in a stunning black gown that made her look like she belonged in his world. Powerful, untouchable, dangerous. As they entered the ballroom, conversations stuttered and died. Everyone knew who they were. Everyone had heard the scandal. Marcus was waiting near the bar, his expression thunderous when he saw them, but he didn't approach immediately. Instead, he watched, circling like a predator waiting for an opening. Sophia felt his attention like a weight, pressing down on her shoulders. Stay close to me, Roman murmured, his hand at the small of her back. He's going to make a move. When he does, I need you to trust me. An hour into the evening, Marcus finally struck. He approached with a smile that promised violence, 2 men flanking him, including the scarred one from earlier. Roman Steele, I've heard so much about you. Whitmore. Roman's voice was cordial, but his eyes were ice. Enjoying the party? I'd enjoy it more if you returned what belongs to me. Marcus's gaze slid to Sophia, possessive and angry. Sophia, darling, this has gone on long enough. Come home. We can work through your little rebellion. I'm not going anywhere with you, Sophia said firmly, despite her racing heart. You don't have a choice. Marcus stepped closer, and suddenly Roman was between them, moving faster than Sophia could track. His hand shot out, gripping Marcus's wrist with enough force to make the older man gasp. Touch her again and you lose the hand, Roman said quietly, his voice carrying an absolute promise of violence. Actually, let me be clearer. Come near her again, speak to her again, breathe in her direction again, and I will destroy everything you've built. Your business, your reputation, your freedom. All of it. You're threatening me? Here? Marcus tried to pull free, but Roman's grip was unbreakable. There are witnesses, cameras. I'm making a promise. And yes, there are witnesses. Let them see what happens to men who don't understand boundaries. Roman released him with a shove that sent Marcus stumbling backward. Sophia made her choice. Accept it and move on, or deal with the consequences. Your call. For a moment, Sophia thought Marcus would escalate, would call his men, would start a fight right there in the Plaza ballroom. But something in Roman's expression, something cold and absolutely certain, made Marcus hesitate. He straightened his jacket, his face purple with rage and humiliation. This isn't over, Marcus hissed. Yes, Roman said softly. It is. Marcus turned and stalked away, his men following. But Sophia saw the look he shot back, pure hatred mixed with calculation. This wasn't over. Not for him. And somehow, she knew the real danger was just beginning. 3 days later, everything exploded. Sophia was in Roman's study, reading, when Victor burst through the door with an urgency that sent her heart racing. "We have a situation. Marcus has made his move." Roman appeared from his office, already armed. "What kind of move?" "He's filed charges: kidnapping, extortion, illegal restraint. He's claiming you took Sophia against her will and are holding her for ransom." Victor's expression was grim. "He has witnesses, paid ones probably, saying they saw you force her into your car at the engagement party." "That's insane." Sophia stood, fury replacing her fear. "I went willingly. I chose to leave. Doesn't matter what actually happened. Matters what he can prove in court." Roman was already thinking, his mind working through angles. "He's backed us into a corner. If I let you go to prove you're here voluntarily, Marcus grabs you. If I keep you here, I look guilty." "There's more," Victor said quietly. "The Kozlovs have made their move too. They've started hitting your operations. Shipments intercepted, warehouses raided. They're using the legal chaos as cover to attack your territory." Roman's jaw clenched, and Sophia saw the dangerous man beneath the controlled exterior. "How bad?" "Bad enough that you need to respond. Tonight, Dmitry Kozlov has called a meeting. Neutral ground, his people and yours. He wants to negotiate terms." "It's a trap," Sophia said immediately. "He's working with Marcus. This is all coordinated." "Of course it's a trap." Roman's smile was sharp and cold. "But I'm going anyway. Because if I don't, I look weak. And weakness in my world is death." "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." Roman turned to her, his expression softening slightly. "Sophia, these men are dangerous. If something goes wrong, then we face it together." Sophia crossed to him, taking his hands. "You said I'm not your weakness. Prove it. Let me stand beside you instead of hiding me away." Roman looked at her for a long moment, conflict clear in his gray eyes. Finally, he nodded. "You stay with Victor at all times. If I give the signal, you run. No arguments, no heroics. Understood?" "Understood." The meeting was set at a warehouse on the waterfront, the kind of place where violence happened and bodies disappeared. Roman's team arrived first. 12 men, all armed, all moving with military precision. Sophia stayed close to Victor, her heart hammering as they entered the cavernous space. Dmitry Kozlov waited in the center, flanked by his own men. He was older than Roman, maybe 50, with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. When he saw Sophia, he smiled. "So the rumors are true. You brought your pretty distraction to a business meeting." "She's not a distraction," Roman said coldly. "She's a reminder of what I'm protecting. Now, what do you want, Dmitry?" "What I've always wanted. Your territory, your operations, your empire." Dmitry circled them slowly. "But I'm willing to negotiate. Give up the port operations and I'll call off Marcus. You keep the girl, I get the business. Everyone wins. Everyone except the hundreds of people who work for me and depend on those operations. Acceptable losses." Dmitry shrugged. "You've made them yourself. Don't pretend you're suddenly noble." Sophia watched Roman's face, saw the war playing out behind his eyes. This was who he used to be, a man who made calculated decisions about acceptable losses. But she also saw something else: resistance, growth, the beginnings of a man who wanted to be different. "No deal," Roman said finally. "Find another way to expand your empire. Then we do this the hard way." Dmitry's smile turned predatory. "Kill them, all of them." Guns appeared on both sides, the warehouse erupting into chaos. Victor shoved Sophia behind a shipping container as bullets tore through the air. Roman moved like death itself, taking down Dmitry's men with brutal efficiency. But they were outnumbered, surrounded, pinned down. Sophia's mind raced. They couldn't shoot their way out. There were too many enemies. But maybe they didn't have to. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and dialed 911. "Shots fired at Warehouse 14 on the West Pier," she said quickly, giving the address. "Multiple armed men. Officer needs assistance." Victor stared at her. "What did you just do?" Called the one thing that scares everyone equally. Sophia's smile was shaky, but determined. The police. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Dimitri's men hesitated, looking to their boss. Roman used the distraction, taking down 2 more before reaching Sophia's position. "You called the cops?" He looked at her with something between horror and admiration. "You're a businessman, not a murderer. So let's handle this like business people. Let the legal system deal with them." Sophia grabbed his hand. "We go out the back, now, before they arrive and arrest everyone." Roman made a split-second decision. "Fall back! Everyone out!" They ran through the warehouse, Victor clearing the path, Roman protecting Sophia. Behind them, Dimitri's shouts echoed as police vehicles surrounded the building. They made it to Victor's car just as the first officers entered the warehouse. In the car, racing away from the waterfront, Roman pulled Sophia against him. "You're either insane or brilliant. Can't I be both?" She was shaking now, adrenaline crashing. Did it work? Are they caught? Dimitri's too smart to stick around, but his men might not be. Roman's phone buzzed with updates. Some of them were arrested, including 3 on outstanding warrants. Dimitri's going to have to explain to his organization why a simple ambush turned into a police raid. And Marcus. Marcus was never there. He's too careful for that. Roman's expression hardened. But he's going to find out what happened. And he's going to realize you're not the helpless victim he thought you were. That night, back at the penthouse, Sophia finally allowed herself to process everything. She'd been shot at, nearly killed, had called the police on a Mafia meeting. Her old life, the safe, controlled existence her father had planned, felt like a distant dream. "I can't keep doing this," she said quietly as Roman bandaged a cut on his arm. "Living in constant danger, waiting for the next attack." "I know." Roman's voice was rough with emotion. "Which is why I'm ending it. Tomorrow, I'm making arrangements to transfer my operations to trusted people. I'm walking away, Sophia. From all of it." She looked up sharply. "You'd do that? Give up everything you built?" "I'd burn it all down to keep you safe." Roman pulled her close. "You were right in that warehouse. I'm not a murderer. I don't want to be that man anymore. I want to be the man who deserves you, and that means leaving this life behind." Sophia kissed him, pouring everything into it: relief, love, hope. Together? Always together. 6 months later, Sophia stood in the kitchen of a farmhouse in upstate New York, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. Roman came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a kiss to her neck. "Morning," he murmured. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." Sophia leaned into him, marveling at how normal this felt, how right. Roman had kept his word. He'd transferred his operations to Victor and 2 other trusted men, creating a council that eliminated any single point of control. He'd cooperated with authorities on certain cases, not betraying his people, but providing information that helped dismantle truly dangerous operations. And he'd walked away with enough legitimate wealth to start over. They'd left Manhattan 3 months ago, buying this farmhouse under new names. Roman was consulting for security companies now, using his tactical expertise legally. Sophia had started an online business helping abuse survivors escape dangerous situations, using everything she'd learned from her own experience. It wasn't the life either of them had imagined, but it was theirs, built on choices instead of obligations. "Sophia Bennett," Roman said softly, turning her to face him. "Or should I say, Sophia Steele?" Her breath caught. They'd talked about marriage, but Roman had insisted on waiting until the danger passed, until they were truly free. "Are you asking me something?" I'm asking if you'll marry me. Officially this time, not as protection or strategy. Just because I love you, and I want to spend every day of the rest of my life proving it. He pulled a simple gold band from his pocket. Nothing like the ostentatious ring Marcus had given her. This was elegant, understated, perfect. Yes, Sophia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Yes, absolutely, yes. They married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony, just Victor and Elena as witnesses. The ceremony was simple, held in the garden behind their farmhouse, with vows they wrote themselves. When Roman kissed her as his wife, Sophia felt the final piece of her old life fall away, replaced by something infinitely better, but peace was shattered 1 week later. Sophia was in town shopping when she saw him, Marcus, standing across the street, watching her with cold calculation. Her heart stopped. She pulled out her phone, dialing Roman with shaking hands. "He's here," she said when he answered. "Marcus found us. Stay in public. I'm coming to you." Roman's voice was hard. "Don't let him isolate you." But Marcus was already crossing the street, his expression pleasant for any observers. "Sophia, you look well. Country life agrees with you. Stay away from me." Sophia backed toward the store entrance where people were gathered. "I just want to talk. 5 minutes, and I'll leave you alone forever." Marcus's smile never reached his eyes. "I have a proposal, a business arrangement that benefits us both. I want nothing from you. Not even your father's freedom?" Marcus let that land, watching her face. "He's being investigated for fraud, financial irregularities in the company books. Faces 10 years in prison. But I could make it go away. 1 call and the investigation disappears." Sophia's blood ran cold. "You set him up." "I simply brought certain discrepancies to the attention of the authorities. Whether they're real or planted doesn't really matter, does it? The charges stick either way." Marcus stepped closer. "But I'm willing to fix it, in exchange for one thing." "What?" "You. 1 night. Just like we planned before Roman interfered. Give me that and your father goes free." Rage and disgust warred in Sophia's chest. "You're insane if you think—" "I'm pragmatic, and I'm offering you a choice. Your father's freedom for a few hours of your time. Surely that's a small price." Marcus's expression hardened. "Refuse, and he goes to prison. A man his age won't survive 10 years. Roman's truck screeched to a halt at the curb. He was out and moving toward them before the engine stopped, Victor right behind him. But Marcus simply smiled and backed away. "Think about it, Sophia. You have 48 hours before the charges are filed." He got into a waiting car and drove away. In their farmhouse kitchen, Sophia explained Marcus's ultimatum while Roman paced like a caged predator. "He set up your father to get leverage. Classic manipulation." "Can we prove it?" Sophia asked desperately. "Not in 48 hours." Roman stopped pacing, his expression calculating. "But we don't need to. We just need to remove his leverage entirely." "How?" "By making sure the charges don't stick. I know people, forensic accountants who can prove the discrepancies were planted. It'll take time, but we can build a defense." Roman's jaw clenched. "And while we do that, I'm going to have a conversation with Marcus. Make him understand this ends now." "No violence," Sophia said firmly. "Promise me." "No violence," Roman agreed. "But I'm going to remind him why coming after you was a mistake." The next day, Roman met Marcus at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Manhattan, public and safe. Sophia insisted on coming, staying close enough to hear, but letting Roman handle the conversation. "Withdraw the charges," Roman said without preamble. "Today." Marcus laughed. "Why would I do that? I finally have what I want, leverage that even you can't eliminate." "Because I have something better than leverage. I have evidence." Roman slid a folder across the table. "Financial records showing you've been embezzling from your own company for years. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, Fraud that makes Sophia's father's alleged crimes look like jaywalking. Release is one call away to the SEC. Marcus's face went pale as he flipped through the documents. Where did you get this? I have people who are very good at finding things people want hidden. So here's my counter-proposal. Walk away from Sophia, drop the charges against her father, and I keep this file private. Otherwise, you're the one going to prison, for significantly longer than 10 years. The silence stretched. Finally, Marcus closed the folder. You win. This time. No. Roman's voice was absolute. Every time, because unlike you, I don't play games with people's lives unless I know I'll win. Now get out of our lives. Permanently. Marcus left without another word. 3 days later, the investigation into Sophia's father was quietly dropped. A week after that, Marcus Whitmore resigned from his company, citing health reasons. Rumor was he'd moved to Europe, disappearing from Manhattan social circles entirely. 1 month later, Sophia stood in their garden, watching Roman plant tomatoes with an intensity that made her laugh. This man, former soldier, former crime lord, current husband and amateur farmer, was everything she'd never known she needed. What? Roman looked up, dirt on his hands and a smile on his face. Just thinking about how far we've come. Sophia knelt beside him, taking his hand. From that garden where you offered to save me to this garden where we're building something real. No regrets? Roman asked softly. Not a single one. Sophia kissed him, tasting sunshine and possibility. You saved me, Roman. But more than that, you showed me how to save myself. We saved each other, Roman corrected, pulling her close. And we're going to keep saving each other, every day, for the rest of our lives. As they worked in the garden together, the past finally behind them and the future stretching bright and open, Sophia realized this was what freedom felt like. Not running from danger or hiding from consequences, but choosing love and building a life worth protecting. Together, they'd proven that even people forged in darkness could find their way to light. And that sometimes, the most dangerous thing you could do was choose happiness over fear.